Welcome to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Mashiach ben David, Messiah, the son of David. Today we'll be studying Tractate Chullin, page 83, starting with 83a, and top of the page, Ba hakatuv litein aseh achar lo taseh. Ba hakatuv litein aseh achar lo taseh, lama she'en lo hikin alav zeh Rav Yehuda. The verse comes to provide a positive mitzvah to burn the leftovers. In the second part of the verse that states, but that which remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire. This positive mitzvah is stated after the prohibition against leaving it over was stated in the first part of the verse to say that one is not flogged for transgressing the prohibition. This is because any prohibition that can be rectified by the performance of a positive mitzvah does not carry a punishment of lashes. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. If not for this reason, Rabbi Yehuda evidently would hold that he receives lashes. The forewarning given in this case is uncertain, as he must be forewarned before morning, and at that time he might still consume it. Rabbi Yaakov Omer, lo min Hashem hu ze, ela mishum dahavi lei, lav she'im boi maise, v'chol lav she'im boi maise in lo igin alav. Rabbi Yaakov says, this is not for that reason. Lo min Hashem hu ze. It's not for that reason. Rather, it is because it is a prohibition that does not involve an action. The transgression is simply the failure to consume all the meat during the allotted time rather than the performance of an action, and one is not flogged for the violation of any prohibition that does not involve an action. Toshima achoshtei gidin mishtei reichois mishtei behemois soifik shmoinim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Eino soifig raboim, hechidomi, ilema bezeh achar zeh, u'shtei hasrois. My time is Rabbi Yehuda Omer, raboim besulo, el pshita bevas achas, v'chad asro. The Gemara suggests coming here a resolution with regard to the opinion of Sumchis from a brisa discussing the sciatic nerve. If one ate two sciatic nerves from two thighs of two different animals, he incurs the penalty of 80 lashes. Rabbi Yehuda says he incurs only 40 lashes. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances in this case? If we say that he ate them one after the other and with two separate forewarnings, what is the reasoning of the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says the violator receives 40 lashes and nothing more? After all, he violates two separate prohibitions with two separate forewarnings. Rather, it is obvious that he ate them at the same time with a single forewarning. My Tanakame, Ilim Rabban B'Digala Sumches, U'Mahosem Negovem Machlokin, Patri Rabbonon, Hochen Lekoshchein, Edalav Sumchesi. Who is the first Tana? Who is the first Tana who holds that in such a case one receives 80 lashes? If we say that it's the rabbis who disagree with Sumchus in the Mishnah about itself and its offspring, that would contradict their opinion. Now, if they're in that Mishnah in a case where there are various animals that are separate entities, the rabbis deem him exempt from a second set of lashes. Here, in the Bright about two sciatic nerves, which are not separate entities, should they not all the more so deem him exempt from a second set of lashes? Rather, is it not Sumches who is the first Tana? Consequently, in his opinion, one who eats the same prohibited item, such as an olive bulk or forbidden fat, twice after a single forewarning, receives two sets of lashes. Le'oilam bezeh achar zeh, u'deka ambrit, my time in Rabbi Yehuda, ki going to les bokezais, titanya ochol ve'in bokezais chayov. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ad shehei bokezais. The Gemara responds, actually, he ate the two sciatic nerves, one after the other, with separate forewarnings. incurring 2 sets of lashes, even according to the rabbis who disagree with Sumches in the Mishnah about itself and its offspring. And as for that which you say, what is the reason of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that the transgressor incurs only a single set of lashes? This is a case where the volume of one of the sciatic nerves is not even in olive bulk, and Rabbi Yehuda follows his line of reasoning as it is taught in a Braisa. If one ate the entire sciatic nerve and its volume is not even on olive bulk, he's liable to incur 40 lashes. Rabbi Yehuda says he is not liable unless it has a volume of at least an olive bulk. That's the Gemara. We start a new Mishnah right now. The Mishnah says, "Be'arba prokim bashono hamoicher behem lechaveiro tzorich liodia. Imo macharti lishchoit, bito macharti lishchoit. Ve'elu hein erev Yom Tov ha'acharon shel Chag, ve'erev Yom Tov harishon shel Pesach, ve'erev Atzeres, ve'erev Rosh Hashanah, וכדרב יויס הגלילי, אף ערב יום כיפורים בגליל." The Mishnah says, on 4 occasions during the year, one who sells an animal to another is required to inform him, "I sold the mother of this animal today for the buyer to slaughter," or "I sold the daughter of this animal today for the buyer to slaughter it." Sounds so barbaric. The daughter, the mother, slaughtering the mother, slaughtering. But anyway, the animals, but still, it sounds very, Anyway, that's my opinion. I sold the daughter of this animal today to a buyer to slaughter it. And those 4 occasions are the eve of the last day of the festival of Sukkot, the eve of the first day of the festival of Passover, and the eve of Shavuot, and the eve of Rosh Hashanah. And according to the statement of Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, on the eve of Yom Kippur in the Galilee is included as well. Amar Yehuda Imosai Bizman Shin Boy Revach. אבל יש לרווח אין צורך להודיעוי. ומועד רבי יהודה במערכתו לנחוסן, האם לנחוסן, אסבס לקלו. Sounds too human to me. שצריך להודיעוי בידוע ששניהם שוחטים בו ביום אחד. Rabbi Yehuda says, when must he inform the buyer on those days? He must do so at a time when the seller has no interval between the sale of the mother and the offspring, as they were both sold on that day. But if the seller has an interval between the sales, he does not need to inform the buyer, as presumably each buyer purchased the animal to slaughter it on the day he purchased it. And Rabbi Yehuda concedes that in a case where one sells the mother animal to the groom and the offspring to the bride. Oh, it's a real groom. I thought they were talking about the groom of an animal who marries another animal. No, it's selling it to a real groom, to a human. Yeah, I don't think a chatan would apply to an animal. Okay, for a second I did, but anyway. One who sells the mother animal to the groom and the offspring to the bride, that even if he did not sell them on the same day, he must inform the buyer, as it is obvious that they are both planning to slaughter their animal on one day for their wedding feast. Berba prokim elu maschitin es a tebach bal kochui afilu shor shave 1,000 dinarim ve'ein lo lokeach ela dinar koi v'noi so lishchoi lefichach im meis lelokeach אבל השאר ימוס השונה אין אנו כן לפיכך עם מייס למויכר. Okay, what are we saying here? On those 4 occasions, one compels the butcher to slaughter animals even against his will. Even if there is a bull worth 1,000 dinars and the buyer has only 1 dinar worth of meat, meaning he already paid the butcher for 1 dinar's worth of meat, one compels him to slaughter the animal and give him a dinar's worth of meat. Therefore, if the bull dies before slaughter, although no active acquisition was performed, it dies at the expense of the buyer, and he loses his dinar. But he loses his dinner. But during the rest of the days of the year, it is not so. On the other days, until the buyer performs the act of pulling to assume ownership of the portion of the bull that he is purchasing, the bull remains in the butcher's possession. Therefore, if the bull dies before the transaction is complete, it dies at the expense of the seller, who returns the buyer's money. Okay. Now for the Talmud. The Gemara says, the Mishnah teaches that on the 4 occasions mentioned, it is the seller's responsibility to inform the purchaser that the mother or offspring of the animal he is purchasing was sold that day. With regard to this, it is taught, consequently, the purchaser has no obligation to clarify the situation. If the seller did not inform him, the purchaser may go and slaughter the animal he has purchased and need not refrain from doing so. The Mishnah teaches that Yehuda says, when must he inform the buyer on those days? It then teaches that Rabbi Yehuda concedes that in a case where one sold the mother animal to the groom and the offspring to the bride, even if he did not sell them on the same day, he must inform the buyer. The Gemara asks, why do I need to teach that the butcher sold specifically the mother animal to the groom and the offspring to the bride? He could have taught he sold one to the groom and the other to the bride. Why the mother to the... I was thinking the same thing, actually. No kidding. I said, why the mother to the groom and the daughter to the bride? Maybe you should sell the mother to the bride. He sold... Okay. The Gemara answers, it teaches us a related matter in passing. That it is proper to conduct the groom's household to exert more effort than for the bride's household in marriage preparations. Therefore, the groom purchases the mother, the large animal, while the bride purchases the small animal, the offspring. Okay, makes sense. The Mishnah teaches, on those 4 occasions, one compels the butcher to slaughter animals even against his will, and even if there is a bull worth 1,000 dinars, and the buyer has paid for only 1 dinar's worth of meat, one compels him to slaughter the animal. Therefore, if the bull dies before slaughter, it dies at the expense of the buyer. The Gemara challenges, but the buyer did not yet pull the animal to effect acquisition. Consequently, although he paid the seller, the animal is not his. Rav Huna said, the Rav said, the case is where he pulled it and thereby acquired it. The Gemara asks, if so, say the latter clause. But during the rest of the days of the year, it is not so. Therefore, if the bull dies, it dies at the expense of the seller, who returns the buyer's money. But according to the Rav, didn't the buyer pull the animal? If so, why is his death at the expense of the seller? Amar Shmuel bar Yitzchak לעולם שלא ימשך וכגויים שזיקה לו על ידי האחר והרבה פרוקים אלו נסחוס הוא לא יזוכן לאודם שלא בפורנוב בשער מויס השונו דחויף הוא לא אין חובים לאודם שלא בפורנוב. Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak said, actually, the case in the Mishnah is one where the buyer did not pull the animal, and it is a case where the seller transfers ownership to the customer by means of another person, meaning by instructing another to inquire a dinar's worth of the ox's meat. I wonder if a dinar's worth can buy you a dinner. All right. Worth of the ox's meat and slaughtered on the customer's behalf, without having obtained the customer's consent. Therefore, on those 4 occasions where it was for the customer's benefit as he wants meat for the festival. The principle one can act in a person's interest in his absence applies. By contrast, during the rest of the days of the year, where it is to the customer's disadvantage to acquire the meat before the bull is slaughtered, as he does not want to incur vital expenses, one cannot act to the disadvantage of another person in his absence. Therefore, if the bull dies, it is at the expense of the seller. Rabbi Elazar Omer Rabbi Yochanan bar Prakim Elo Emidu Chachamim Divreim al Din Toire. Rabbi Elazar says, Rabbi Yochanan says, that there is a different explanation. On those four occasions, the sages based their statement on the Torah law that giving money affects acquisition, and therefore the payment of the buyer requires the meat for him with no need for pulling. Damar Rabbi Yochanan Dva Toire Mois Koinois Ubatamam Umeshich Koignek Zer Shem Yom Eloi Nisrvu Chitecha Balio. As Rabbi Yochanan says, by Torah law, giving money affects the acquisition of movable property with no need for pulling. And what is the reason the sages said that pulling affects acquisition? Why did they say, Take, that pulling does affect acquisition? It is a rabbinical decree, lest the seller, once he receives the money, be unconcerned about the welfare of the movable property that he has sold, and, for example, not protect it from fire, so that he will say to the buyer, your wheat was burned in the upper story of my house, and I have no responsibility for it. For the benefit of rejoicing on the festival, the sages ordained that Torah law remains in effect on these four occasions, and the buyer's money affects acquisition, and one compels the butcher to slaughter animals even against his will. That concludes the Talmud for that portion, and now we proceed to the Mishnah. We'll continue on until the next Daf, 83b, to conclude this chapter and stop there. Bezrat Hashem. Okay? Nu Mishnah. Zogt the Heilige Mishnah, Yoim Echod. Amr ba'oisev yes benoi. Hayoim hoylech achar halayla. Ezo darash Shimon ben Zoima. Ne'emar b'maaseh Bereishis Yom Echad. ונאמר באותו בית בנו יום אחד מה יום אחד אמור במעשה בראשיס היום הולך אחר הלילו אף יום אחד אמור באותו בית בנוי היום הולך אחר הלילו. But doesn't it always go after the night? Okay, anyway, just leave my question aside. The Mishnah says with regard to the phrase one day that is stated with regard to the prohibition against slaughtering an animal itself and its offspring, the day follows the night. Therefore, one may slaughter an animal during the day and slaughter its offspring that night. But one may not slaughter an animal at night and its offspring the following day. Rabbi Shimon ben Zoma derived this by means of a verbal analogy. It is stated in the act of creation one day, Genesis 1:5, and it is stated with regard to the slaughter of an animal itself and its offspring one day, Leviticus 22:28. Just as concerning the phrase one day, that is stated in the act of creation, the day follows the night, so too concerning the phrase one day, that it is stated with regard to the slaughter of an animal itself and its offspring, the day follows the night. I thought that the Gemara might ask a question. This is my own question. But why do you need Rabbi Shimon ben Zoma's derivation? We know for everything that day goes after the night in Jewish law. Why do you have to make a special case? It says one day here and one day by the night. It says by creation, it says one day, one night, and zero. You don't need that. That's for everything. We always go with that. That's for all things. Alright, it's been a question. And I thought the Gemara might ask that, but the Gemara didn't ask that. Okay. So that's the Mishnah, and now we do the Talmud. Tanu Rabbanon is Zed Arash Rabbi Shimon ben Zoimo. לפי שכל העניין כולו אינו מדבר אלא בקודשים, ובקודשים לילו הולך אחר יום. יכול אף זה כן, נאמר כאן יום אחד, נאמר מעשה בראשיס יום אחד. מה יום אחד אמור במעשה בראשיס? היום הולך אחר הלילו, אף אמור בויסוי, יש בנוי, היום הולך אחר. Okay, so the Gemara actually does address my question a little bit. It's in a roundabout way, I think. The sages taught in Bright, Rabbi Shimon ben Zoma taught this explanation because the entire section of the Torah where the prohibition of itself and its offspring appears speaks only about sacrificial animals. And with regard to sacrificial animals, the night follows the day. So you might think the opposite. So you do need a pasuk. My question was you don't need it. But what they're saying here is that with regard to sacrificial animals, the night follows the day. Just at the top of my head, they do the korban tamid, they do it, and then they clean. They do all the things at night. They clean. It's part of the daily thing. So you might think it's the same case here by, slaughtering the same animal on the same day. With regard to the sacrificial animal, the night follows the day. One might have thought that even with regard to this prohibition, it also is this way. Therefore, the following derivation is required. It is stated here with regard to the slaughter of an animal and its offspring one day, and it is stated in the act of creation one day, just as concerning the phrase one day. That is stated in the act of creation, the day follows the night. So too, concerning the phrase one day, that is stated with regard to the slaughter of the animal itself and its offspring, the day follows the night. And now we continue on to 83b, to conclude the 5th chapter of Chullin, which is called Oto Viet Beno, or Oisoi Vies Benoi, depending on your pronunciation. And starting the new chapter with the side B in our next gathering. We're on the top of 83b right now. Rabbi Omer, Yom Echad, Yom HaMiyuchad Torun Karuz. מכאן אמרו 4 פרוקים השונו מויך בהם ולחברוי צורך לידיוי הדרן הלך אויסוי ויספינוי. May we return to you 5th chapter of Chullin, Oto Viet Beno, and just for the English we'll say Rabbi Huda Nasi says the verse you shall not slaughter it and its offspring both in one day, Leviticus 22:28, is referring to a special day, and it indicates that a special day requires a proclamation to prevent buyers from slaughtering an animal together with its offspring on that day. From here it is derived that which is stated in the Mishnah on 4 occasions during the year, which are special days. One who sells an animal to another must inform him, I sold its mother for slaughter, or I sold its offspring for slaughter. Hadran alach oisav yes benoi. And may we continue on. Michayil el chayil. From strength to strength. And with the 6th parak of Kisui Hadam, which will be the 83b.